Chapter 4 of my book talks about the need for a theology 2.0 that is adequate to a humanity 2.0. And here I deal with the very vexed question surrounding the status of Darwinism, not only as a scientific phenomena, but as a cultural phenomenon in our world today. There is no doubt about it that the neo-Darwinian synthesis, which brings together molecular genetics and natural history, is in fact the dominant view of biology today. The big problem is that this view of biology implies a view of human beings where we're just one among other animal species that has certain kinds of adaptive capacities, but are very much also limited by those capacities and the environments in which we operate. And it's in that context, of course, that concerns about radical changes in global climate are causing so much concern now, and in the past issues having to do with human population growth rates, and one can think about throughout the modern period other sorts of biologically oriented concerns that point to the limitations of humanity that, as it were, bring us back down to earth and show that we're just another animal creature. Now, the problem with this view, as I have talked about it in several other books in the context of intelligent design theory, which is now presenting itself as an alternative way of understanding the nature of life, is that if we really took this Darwinian view seriously, it would be difficult to motivate the kind of science that we in fact have been doing since the so-called scientific revolution of the 17th century. This is to say, a science that aims to understand everything comprehensively, rationally, under the smallest set of laws that can in turn generate the largest set of phenomena, including phenomena with which we will never have any kind of direct empirical contact and which have really no bearing on our survival as animal species. And I'm talking about things like issues having to do with the beginning of time, the size of the universe. Most of cosmology as understood in physics today, completely irrelevant from a Darwinian standpoint, nevertheless is invested with a lot of cultural value, traditionally a lot of funding, a lot of intellectual value, and a lot of significance. Now, so there's a sense in which we operate in a very sort of schizoid world, where in a sense the science that we believe in that explains us the best, the neo-Darwinian synthesis, ends us as explaining us as a creature that would never have gotten to the kind of science that we in fact today have and value. So that's a funny question. And we need to continue to value that sort of science and to promote that sort of science because our humanity is very much wrapped up in it. That we are the creature that in principle could understand everything. And if you take that away from human beings, then it's clear to see exactly what we have that makes us so distinctive. At least this is my point of view, and it's from that standpoint that I actually defend intelligent design theory, which presupposes that the universe is basically a divine artifact. An artifact is to be taken literally. Namely, it is a piece of technology that is much, much better than anything human beings can do, but is nevertheless to be understood as a piece of technology. And because we can make technology, we can create artifacts, we are at least in some position to work our way towards some understanding of that. I think that sort of view, which motivated great scientists of the past, Robert Boyle, Galileo, Sir Isaac Newton, in the more modern period, we can think about people like Faraday and Maxwell, and arguably existing throughout the 20th century, not only in physics, but also within biology as well, especially if we look at the history of genetics, and the founder of genetics in the late 19th century, Gregor Mendel, who was himself a monk of the Augustinian order. So this whole idea of being able to get into the mind of God, as is popularly still talked about today, has been very instrumental in the motivation for science and in the self-definition of us as creatures. It seems to me that this view is still very important and very well worth keeping in mind, especially as a way of motivating people to do science for its own sake. That is to say, not science for commercial gain, for which there's a lot of reasons for doing, but science for its own sake, where in a sense we do not care about the consequences because the task itself, the enterprise itself, is valuable because of the value that it shows that we have as creatures in the universe.